Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions. The air over Nguyen Da Dung Mountain, Vietnam, on March 23, 1969, screams with the savage noises of war. The frantic rattles of machine gun fire, the whooshing of incoming RPGs, and the continuous, desperate crackle of small arms fire. A Navy helicopter burns nearby, shot down by incoming fire. Petty Officer Robert J. Thomas of SEAL Team 2 lies amidst the blood, mud, and spent brass. He is in critical condition. His body shows the evidence of trauma. A fresh bullet wound tears into his abdomen, a gruesome injury scars his face, and a compression fracture throbs in his spine, all sustained and immediately following the brutal crash. Yet Thomas pushes through the unimaginable pain. Seconds ago, he heroically dragged his wounded pilot and door gunner away from the burning wreckage, moments before the fuel tanks exploded. He saved them, only to find himself surrounded. His heavy machine gun, his primary weapon, is destroyed. His sidearm was flung away when he was violently thrown from the helicopter. Now he is alone and unarmed, hearing the unmistakable shouts and footsteps of the enemy. An unknown number of assailants, armed with AK-47 assault rifles and mortars, are closing in on his position. A deadly, inevitable fate awaits him and the two men he risked his life to save. Then, Thomas looks down at the unconscious pilot lying beside him. Secured in a shoulder holster, barely visible beneath the wreckage, a final desperate hope glints. A Colt 1911 .45 caliber automatic pistol. With a grunt of agonizing effort, Thomas draws the heavy weapon, aims through the blinding haze and pain, and prepares to fight for his life and the lives of his crew against the entire mountain. Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week, the show where we tell the badass history of badasses. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am joined today by a writer, a podcaster, a longtime friend of the show and website. We are joined today by Matt Fratus from Late Night History. He was a writer for Coffee or Die magazine, and you've been doing all kinds of other cool podcast stuff. So Matt, thank you so much for being on the show. It's really great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. The last episode I was on, we talked about Boston firefighter Eddie Loader. So I'm really excited to talk about a new badass today.
Yes. So yeah, you came on to talk about Eddie Loader, who was really just an amazing firefighter from Boston. And that's a great episode. We'll put a link up to it. Definitely go back and check that out. But it was an interesting topic for us to talk about because on Late Night History, you've become kind of like an expert on the Navy SEALs. I feel like you're very well positioned to talk about the history of the SEALs and of badass SEALs. Yet when you came on the show, we were talking about firefighters. But you've interviewed a lot of these guys for your show.
Yeah, that's correct. I've interviewed Korean War frogmen, a bunch of Vietnam Navy SEALs, a bunch of global war on terror. But the badass that I wanted to come and bring to your show is a guy by the name of Robert J. Thomas, aka RJ Thomas.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this was one that I was very happy because we were going back and forth on who we can talk about. I was like, I got to have you back on, and you got to talk about a SEAL this time because you have kind of positioned yourself to be a podcast expert on this sort of thing. And you sent me a few options. You're like, oh, we could talk about these guys or talk about this. And when Robert J. Thomas came up, this was a name I didn't know. And I always love that because it's kind of hard to stump me with these sorts of things. So when I saw that come up, I was like, I don't know this story. And you're like, dude, it's awesome. I'm not even going to tell you anything. I'm just we're doing it. I was like, okay, cool. Sounds great. I did research, so I am ready. I'm prepared to talk about it now. But at the time, I had no idea who this was. And I'm really glad that I looked him up because this story is awesome.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, before we go into his background and things like that, he just looks badass when he goes to Vietnam. So he's 6'1", he's 200 pounds. He carries this big machine gun that's exclusive to the SEALs in Vietnam. So it's called the Stoner 63A. And he would have 100 bullets in the drum of the machine gun. And then he would have 600 bullets crisscross in bandoliers over his shoulders, like kind of like an outlaw, like Old West.
Yes, like a Pancho Villa, like Chewbacca, like the whole, like the sash across. I mean, you see this in movies and you think it's just like done for effect, but you see pictures of him like in Vietnam carrying this around on his chest like that.
Yeah, he just looks really cool. And just a little bit about him. He did serve 32 years in the U.S. Navy, 30 years with Naval Special Warfare.
Yeah, so he's awesome. So when you see this guy, the Stoner 63, it looks like the M60. I know it's different, but it kind of has that vibe to it with the bipod hangs down and he's got the straps of ammo all over him. He's wearing the boonie hat that you see in, a lot of Vietnam stuff. His face is painted in some of the pictures that you see of him. And some of them, he's got this big mustache, like 1970s kind of mustache. It's kind of cool. And yeah, you see pictures of these guys, when you look up pictures of like Vietnam Navy SEALs, you see a group of guys kind of like, crouched in front of a helicopter, and they look like serious guys. They look like you would not want to run into these guys in a dark jungle. So we're going to tell this story. And, I just feel like when you do something like Badass of the Week and you're like, oh, we're going to do a Navy SEAL who served for 20 years in Vietnam and did several tours in Vietnam, highly decorated. I feel like just that is like, okay, I get it. That guy's badass. I understand. But when we get into kind of the mission that is going to define him, and we allude to it in the cold open of this episode, this guy's above and beyond. So we are going to take a really quick break for an ad. And when we come back, we are going to hear the story of Robert J. Thomas. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the show. I am here with Matt Fratus of Late Night History. And Matt, we're going to talk about Robert Thomas. So what is his background and where did he come from?
Yeah, so he was born in 1945 and raised on a cattle ranch in California. As a young kid, he grew up like hunting. So like birds and squirrels, mountain lions when he got a little older, coyotes, and even bears, because these animals would come and try to like attack the farm animals or the crops. So he'd be like there with protecting as a teenager, young kid.
It's very like California. It's what you think about when you think about California, right?
And
fighting coyotes and bears in your backyard or trying to steal your cattle. Seems like a Texas thing, but they do have that in California, especially once you get out of the cities.
Yeah, and he saw a movie. It was called The Frogman. And he read some books about the Naked Warriors. And the Naked Warriors were from the underwater demolition teams. So World War II, Korea, and then later Vietnam. But mostly they were shirtless. They had khaki shorts. They just had a knife, swim fins, and like a shit ton of explosives.
Right. Yeah. It's pulp adventure meets like high explosives. These are guys who would swim underneath, extremely dangerous job. But this was kind of early Navy special forces in World War II. These guys would, they would dive under and kind of not necessarily disarm mines, although sometimes they would dive under and like blow up, obstructions or enemy ships. And this is dangerous work, but that Frogman movie's great. And clearly this when he saw dudes looking cool doing Navy stuff, he was like, I want to be a dude that looks cool doing Navy stuff.
Yep. So he joins the Navy in 1964 at 17, but at the time you couldn't go right to UDT training. You had to go do another job before you could volunteer. And he went aboard the USS Josephus Daniels, which is named after the Secretary of the Navy. And while he was on that ship, he was the captain of the ship's pistol and rifle team. And he was like a world-class shooter. You earned Distinguished Marksman in the M1911 hand cannon or handgun, you know.
Yes. Yes. So this is the Colt 1911. This is the 45 caliber handgun that was the standard sidearm in World War II, and it still is at this point for the Army and the Marines, I believe. You know, being the best marksman, you know, being an award-winning pistol marksman with a 45, which is not necessarily always an easy thing to be a marksman with, is one thing, but also being it among other Navy SEALs, right, is another thing. My friend used to work on a Navy base, and he was talking to me once, and he was like, I went to go watch the base dodgeball finals, and I kind of knew dodgeball was a blood sport, but when I went to the finals, it was like SEAL Team 3 against the Marines. And it was, I would have rather been redeployed to Afghanistan than like go out onto that field, go out onto that court.
It's great. That's a great story.
So difficult competition, but he's the best. He's the best shooter, right? And this is going to be relevant. This is foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing for sure. And in like 1966, I believe, he goes to like UDT training, like historic. Like, so if you are familiar with Navy SEALs, they train in Coronado, California. It's called BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. These was the old days. So we went through class 38. They're at like 360 or something now. So class 38, East Coast in Virginia during the winter time. So he goes through training during that. That makes him badass going through training on the East Coast.
Right. This is that training that you always see pictures of, like, here's how Navy SEALs train. And it's just like just dudes getting drowned, you know, this is just dudes drowning in freezing water. They're all shivering and like spitting up water. It does not look like a fun time. They like tie you up and throw you in a swimming pool and stuff. There's all this crazy stuff that goes involved with it. There's a super high washout rate, a very difficult like success rate for applicants. And these are the toughest guys in the Navy. They try out for this training, and a lot of them don't make it through because it is very, very, very difficult. And so, yeah, class 38, I imagine this is like, you know, what year would this be? Mid 1960s. This is probably like the 1970s NFL version of what they have today.
Yeah. And so he would go on to serve at UDT 22, but I think it's important to cover that SEAL team was established on January 1st, 1962 by President John F. Kennedy. And it was SEAL Team 1 on the West Coast, SEAL Team 2 on the East Coast. And it was unconventional warfare, direct action raids, you know, things that SEALs are famous for today.
So is he an original SEAL?
So they call the original SEALs plank owners because it's like a Navy ship. You take the plank. But
right,
for the SEALs, they don't have ships really, unless they're doing certain different things. But for example, when he would
certainly not ships with planks.
Yeah. But for example, with R.J. Thomas, when he went to UDT 22, he was working he would go on a big submarine. And then on top of that submarine are these mini subs called SEAL delivery vehicles. So you just pile in a bunch of SEALs in there. You go do a secret operation. No one ever talks about it or hears of it. And then they come back and come home.
Mini sub. Yeah, I've seen pictures of them. They don't look comfortable, but they're not designed for comfort. They're designed for stealth. And yeah, so he's doing that. He's getting involved with, he's doing missions that we probably still can't talk about, I imagine.
Yep. And then he goes to SEAL Team 2 and deploys to Vietnam in 1969.
Okay. And so he heads to Vietnam with SEAL Team 2. His rank at this point is radio operator first class. And so he's manning a radio in Vietnam. How hard could that be?
Very hard, actually.
That doesn't sound that difficult, right?
Yeah. So
what sorts of things is he doing over there? And why is radio operator not as cushy a job as it might sound?
Yeah, so SEALs go on, like their platoon. They would go out into the jungle and they'll get support by, say they get in a gunfight and there's a battle. they call on backup. Who's the backup that's coming? Usually it's gunships, Huey helicopters. I could have aircraft. He's the guy that would be talking to them and also talking to the people back at base, also while fighting on the ground.
Right. It's just an added difficulty. You have this 60-pound communications backpack that you've got to carry around in addition to fighting. And this is the ones like, so you're not sitting back in base, like talking to the SEAL teams on the radio. You are on the ground talking to that guy being like, they're shooting at us. I need napalm right now on this coordinate. So yes, difficult job. And he's deploying with the SEALs. What sorts of things would they be doing around this time? We've talked about some Green Berets in Vietnam, especially we did Dennis Dix and we did Robert Howard, but they were both kind of operating on the Cambodia border. What were the SEALs up to in the earlier days of Vietnam?
For SEAL Team 2 in particular in RJ at this time, they were also along the Vietnam and Cambodia border. And at this time around March, they got orders to go hunting for a Viet Cong bandit and his crew because they were terrorizing a village along the border. So they would raid the village. They would kidnap women and teenagers. If the village resisted, Viet Cong would mortar the town. So SEAL Team 2, supported by another badass unit, I have to say, is the U.S. Navy Sea Wolves. These are helicopter gunships. They have 50 cal machine guns. They have rockets, and they have door gunners with M60s. So on March 23rd, the Sea Wolves are on a patrol, and they spot the bandit. So they make some gun runs, run out of ammo, come back to base, get refit, refueled, and RJ Thomas runs onto the Sea Wolf helicopter with his Stoner machine gun.
Calling him in for backup.
And
you need that 600 rounds he's carrying on his chest.
That's right. So they take off and they go in pursuit. And while they're en route, they start taking heavy machine gun fire and they get shot down. But while they're getting shot down, like while the bullets are coming in, RJ gets hit in the ribs above the kidney. And then amidst the crash, something hits him in the face. And it... a really gruesome wound where from like his eyebrow down to his nose is like a real like free flopping from his face.
Like his nose fell off?
He was still attached, but I mean,
but not by much.
Not by much.
Oh man. Yikes. So they are looking for this warlord who is terrorizing the countryside. They find him, they attack him, they come back to rearm, refit. Thomas just is like, you're taking me with you. Come on, let's go. Jumps in. They're flying back, but this time the warlord's ready for him. And they open fire. And like you said, these Seawolf pilots are amazing in how brave they were to keep going into these missions. These guys, they take big hit. The Seawolf is shot up so this guy's shot in the liver, survives the helicopter crash, which seems badass by itself, but he's not in good shape. He's just been in a helicopter crash. A big portion of his face is falling off, and he's got a bullet somewhere in his abdomen, which is just full of organs that seem important. So this is just the beginning of the story. This is just the first, how the movie starts.
Exactly. And the Stoner machine gun that he had, he lost that in the crash. He also carried an M39 Smith & Wesson pistol, lost that too. So he had nothing to fight with.
Oh, so his machine gun it's so badly damaged. Like that's how bad this helicopter crash was. Like, this is like a kind of a Black Hawk Down kind of visual of like the helicopter's going down and it smashes so hard that it destroys his gun. Now he's got all this ammo he's carrying around, but he doesn't have a gun to fire it out of. And he lost his pistol, goes flying out because it got ejected from the helicopter. This seems bad. You're severely wounded and you have no weapon. And you're in enemy territory along the Cambodian border, and there are a lot of guys shooting at you.
A lot of guys with AK-47s, SKSs, all like long guns, and RJ at this time has nothing. Mm-hmm. So
They probably have RPGs too, I bet.
Probably.
We know they have mortars. They've been using them on the town.
Yeah, so they're heavily armed, and there are people trapped. There's 2 guys that are trapped underneath the helicopter, and there's also a pilot. And RJ goes and pulls the pilot from the cockpit and the wreckage, and pulls him out of safety while under gunfire. But in his shoulder holster, he has the pilot, not RJ, has a .45 pistol, the M1911. What are the odds of that?
just so happens to be the gun that you're the marksman champion of the Navy SEALs in. Okay, so let's kind of set the scene here. RJ Thomas has fallen out of the helicopter. So the helicopter goes down. He falls out of it before it hits the ground. And he's thrown about 40 feet from the crash. The helicopter's on fire. It's full of explosives because it's got rockets and machine guns that it hasn't fired yet, or at least not very much. The crew is in there burning or, in unconscious, wounded, whatever, condition unknown. He's badly wounded, the face. He's got a bullet in his stomach. He also takes some pretty severe injuries to his spine when he hits the ground, and he's being shot at. So he runs through enemy fire, gets into the burning helicopter with his messed up, with his fractured vertebrae. It was a compression fracture on his vertebrae. He's got minor wounds from his helicopter crash on his torso, knee, and hand. And he's grabbing this guy and pulling him away. Bad guys are closing in, and he looks down at this pilot's shoulder holster, and it's just like, I don't know. It feels like a scene from a movie or a video game or something, where it's just like, here's the gun that you're awesome at. It's like, fun. Good luck. So, okay. So he pulls this guy to safety, and the pilot's name is Dick Barr, and he gets them. I mean, safety being a very relative term, he gets him into cover far away from the helicopter because the Viet Cong know where the helicopter is, and they're shooting at it and maneuvering onto it. So he pulls him back to somewhere that's a little more. He's still surrounded, but okay. What's next?
So the Viet Cong start running, kind of to overrun the position, but once they get into about 100 yards, that's when RJ starts firing back. And the Viet Cong take cover behind this, what he calls a dike or like a berm, or just, cover to...
like a little hill.
Yeah, a little hill. And they take their AKs and their guns and they're firing over the top. And then once they're done firing, they peek up their heads to see if they got anybody. And RJ says when they peek their heads over, that's when he would shoot. And sometimes he wouldn't see a head anymore.
I mean, that is just wild, right? I mean, we don't know how many guys he's facing, right? We'll never kind of know the answer to this question because, nobody stuck around to find out, to count them, right? So his mission right now is to just stay alive. And there's guys in the helicopter. He's got the pilot with him. The pilot's unconscious, but alive. He has this 1911. It's a .45. It's got 2 magazines, and talking about chest straps, Dick Barr has a chest strap that has maybe another 50 rounds in it. So we're looking at maybe like 60 bullets this guy's got. And I mean, that's like 2 AK magazines, right? And they can shoot a lot faster. So just the calmness to sit there and wait for them to peek their heads over. I'll just lay here, wait for them to stop shooting. I'll peek my head up, and then I'll shoot them when they pop their heads up. I don't know. I just feel stone cold to me.
And just something important to include, there was another helicopter that dropped another guy, and he had a .45 pistol with him too. So he was also on the ground, but he wasn't a world-class shooter like RJ was. So it's like he was kind of reloading, kind of in the firefight a little bit, but it was kind of like RJ's like the guy.
Yes. Because the Seawolves were flying in a group of 2, and the second one, they can't stick around too much because they're shooting at it, right? There's ground fire coming from everywhere. They drop off the door gunner. His name is Dan Reardon, and he comes to help. So they, they're shooting, and at some point the coast is clear enough that Reardan and Thomas are able to run back to the burning helicopter. Is that right?
And I believe they pulled another guy who was wounded.
Yeah, there were 4 guys stuck in the helicopter. 2 were just underneath it, and there was nothing. There was no way you could get to them. RJ pulls the pilot, Dick Barr, out, goes back, gets the door gunner. His name's Rick Abbott, pulls that guy out as well, also unconscious. And they thought about going back to try to dig the last 2 guys out. But around that time, the fire from the helicopter started to set off the explosives and the bullets in the helicopter. And then the whole thing basically exploded. So those 2, they weren't able to get those 2 guys out. But the enemy now they know that there are survivors of this crash, and they're coming to kill or capture them. So Dan Reardan are there behind cover with 2 unconscious aviators, and they're surrounded by NVA or Viet Cong, and all they have is their Colt 1911 45 caliber handguns. Maybe this is a good time to take a really quick break for a commercial, because when we come back, I think it's going to get even crazier. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Badass of the Week. I am here with Matt Fratus of Late Night History. And Matt, when we last saw our heroes, things did not look good for them.
It did not. No. As you said, they were pinned down. And just for like a time concept or a time context, this is like a 45-minute gunfight. So kind of like a long time, Right. Firefights usually, just depending on the situation and everything, they could be really fast, really quick. This is 45 minutes of like just hell.
Yes. That's one thing that always kind of blows my mind when you hear stories about these battles, because, your favorite action movie sequence probably takes 3 minutes, right? And a lot of bullets are fired in that time period. RJ Thomas has 50 to 60 bullets, and he's fighting for 45 minutes, right? Like, that is, I don't know, that's fire discipline, I guess.
So during this time, there's an Army Slick, like a Huey helicopter, that comes in to rescue them. And it flies in and lands, and RJ takes Dick Barr and runs to the helicopter. And as he gets to the helicopter, he pushes Dick Barr onto the helicopter, but he's so exhausted and he's wounded, and he falls to the ground. And when he falls to the ground, he sees the Viet Cong charging the helicopter, but they're charging it from the nose, not the door.
Oh, and the door guns. This is not an attack helicopter. This is a transport helicopter.
Yes.
And the machine guns are only on the side doors. So the front doesn't have any guns. It's just running right at the pilot, basically. Who's not like, uh-oh.
Right. Exactly. So as RJ Thomas is on the ground and in between the helicopter skid, pokes his gun through and shoots the guys there's one guy that charges in the front about 10 yards in front of the helicopter and drops him.
Wow. Yeah, this guy was running up from the story. He was running up to kind of shoot through the front of the cockpit, basically shoot through the windshield and kill the pilots so the helicopter couldn't take off. And this guy is so dead that he can't stand up. He's laying on the ground. It's like a movie.
Yeah.
It's like one of those cop movies where you lay down and shoot the guy under the car, but he did it in a helicopter in a war zone. It's the Die Hard. It's his last bullet, I bet, right? The slide hangs open after he shoots it. You know, like that's the movie version.
Yeah, and Reardan, the guy that was helping him, he brought over Abbott to put him on the helicopter, and RJ recovers a little bit. He gets up into the helicopter and gets onto the M60 door gun.
Of course he does. No, I don't think you're okay, buddy. No, remember his face is like, his like nose is falling off his face. And she's like, no, I'm good. I got this. Are you sure you don't want to sit down, buddy? No, I'm good. Give me the machine gun.
Yeah, and he says that the Viet Cong that were hiding behind that little hill. And he's like, oh, I got on the M60 and I started trying to, take those guys out. And I wrote down a good quote that like the helicopter at this time, it's getting shot. It's been shot like over 100 times, small arms. And then what he says is a 51 caliber, so like a big machine gun. You think 50 cal, he says 51.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, you know what you're talking about.
You're the expert, right?
Yeah. So the helicopter starts to take off. And the quote that I wrote down is from RJ. He says, "I would have preferred to stay there and clean them all up, but the helicopter wanted to get out of there. They didn't want any more battle." So it's like, he's like, "I want some, I want to finish the battle." And the helicopters are like, "We can't even fly back to base. Like, I don't even know if we're going to."
I love that. He's shooting because they're hiding behind, that same position, but now he can see it from the air. And he's like, "I don't have to wait for them to pop their heads up. I can just kind of sweep this area." And then it's like, yeah, because the vehicle is shooting at this helicopter while it's being loaded up with guys. It's got wounded on board. It's still being shot at. It's damaged. And he's just like, "One more pass. I've still got ammo. I've been carrying these 600 rounds on my chest all day. Let's hang around till I fire all of them." Okay, and so he wants to keep going. They say that there's stories of like, the pilots and the crew were all like, "What killed all these guys?" Because they say there's just like a bunch of dead enemy somewhere between 3 and 150 yards from where they're at. And he's like, "Oh, I got them with my pistol." And they're like, "What?" That can't be true. And yeah, and they get up and they take off. And so Barr wakes up. He wakes up actually during the battle. And at some point, he wakes up and in order to stabilize his shooting, he had been using he'd been using Barr's helmet as a stable shooting platform. So he was resting his gun on this guy's helmet to keep his hand steady. And when the guy wakes up, he's like, "Huh?" And so he puts him to work reloading magazines, because he only has 2 magazines for this thing. And they hold 7 rounds, but there's a bandolier of like 50 loose bullets. So after he shoots his 7 or 8, he hands it to the pilot, who kind of has to hand load the next 7 or 8 rounds in there. And these 3 guys with Reardon, they survive, and they get those 2 wounded guys into the 4 wounded guys at this point into the helicopter. They take off and they make it back home. The helicopter holds together, and the pilots get it out of there, and they live. And that's amazing, right?
It is amazing. He goes to the medevac hospital just to get like his nose wired back onto his face. And then he goes to Japan for rehab. And at this time, he got nominated by the Army pilot, I believe, that picked him up for the Medal of Honor, the highest award in the U.S. military. But
that seems fitting.
But because of politics, it was like, because it was recommended by the Army didn't want to give a Navy guy the Medal of Honor. These are RJ's words. So he ended up getting the Navy Cross. That's the second highest award. So like the Army will have like the Distinguished Service Cross. The Air Force has the Air Force Cross. Navy has the Navy Cross.
Yeah, it's the second biggest.
And Marines too.
The Navy, the Navy also, I read that he was nominated twice. The Army nominated him, and the Navy is like, "We're not going to give the Navy Medal of Honor to a guy that was nominated by the Army." But then the Navy recommended him, and there's some deal that like, there's some speculation that the Navy didn't want because he was an enlisted, and the Navy didn't want the first Medal of Honor for a SEAL to go to an enlisted guy. They wanted to go to an officer. I don't know how true that is, but that's the story that I heard. That's
also the story I've heard from Vietnam SEALs. The SEALs who were awarded the Medal of Honor in Vietnam were Bob Kerry, Senator Bob Kerry. He was an officer. I think he was the first, actually. Then it was Mike Thornton, who you wrote about on Badass of the Week.
Yeah, who we almost talked about this week, and we'll talk about again. We'll talk about soon.
Tommy Norris. He's really badass too, because after his SEAL stuff, he went to the FBI's.
Those 2 stories go together too,
yeah,
right?
They do. After he did the SEAL stuff, he went to the FBI's hostage rescue team, and that's like a really, high-profile unit.
Definitely.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. You had Michael Murphy in Afghanistan, the Marcus Luttrell saga. Mikey Mansour, he was in Iraq. He dove on a grenade. Edward Byers rescued a hostage in um, Afghanistan, I think. He was, that was the most recent. I think I covered everybody.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't miss anybody.
Yeah. And I mean, well, the rules for the Medal of Honor are like above and beyond the Call of Duty, and you generally have to like save somebody's life in the process. And I really feel like he accomplished both of those things during the course of this 45-minute gunfight. The mission probably took hours, right? Because you had to fly out and back. But yeah, so he gets nominated twice, but he earns the Navy Cross, which is the second highest award for bravery that the Navy can offer. And he saved those lives. And he definitely, you know, he later will go on to win or earn a couple other awards. He gets a Purple Heart for being wounded. He gets 2 Bronze Stars, and he gets the Cross for gallantry. So very successful, you know, tours of duty in Vietnam. And he doesn't, all of that rehab and injury and all that doesn't knock him out of military service. He sticks around. He's too tough to die.
Not only does he stick around, he returns to Vietnam after getting the Navy Cross to finish his tour with his platoon. Like that's so badass.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love the idea of just like he walks in and be like nobody expected to see him again. He just walks in like it's any other day. Like, hey guys. So he then goes on to be an instructor later on in his career. So after the war, he continues on and he starts the naval warfare sniper program.
Yes, that's right.
Is that right?
That's right. He helped develop the 50 cal, so the 50 cal snipers and the 300 Win Mags.
Mm-hmm.
So he would go to like gun manufacturers, the weapon manufacturers, and he'd be the one who's testing the barrels, like sights, I don't know, triggers, just everything to make the weapon, all the parts for the weapon, to get the best.
So he didn't just train the snipers. He like got them the best gun that he could get them.
Exactly. And I actually have a little funny anecdote. Well, maybe not funny, but he's developing all these different weapons, right? So they were working with the Swedish to find like a rocket launcher. And they found the AT-4 rocket launcher. And the Swedes said it was only good for 700 meters. And RJ was like, nah, my SEAL snipers, we can do better. And they set a vehicle out into the distance, and the SEAL snipers shot at 1,200 meters. And he had a great quote.
And this is a rocket launcher. This is not even a sniper rifle.
Yeah, he had a great quote. He said, the weapon was being limited by the ability of the shooter.
Yeah, there was I did this like driving thing, and the instructor, it was one of these like, you know, driving classes where you get to drive your car like a maniac on an airplane tarmac. And the guy's like, you know, people like to talk about all the different modifications they can make to the car, but the best way to increase the speed of a car is to increase the skill of the driver. So it seems like that. That's funny. And so, yeah, so he, you know, kind of creates the Navy SEAL sniper program. So that's badass. And helps to institute the weaponry that they carry with them. So
yeah, he developed the course on the West Coast. So the West Coast teams, I think in the 80s. So in the 80s, it was 1, 3, 5. And then SEAL Team 7 came on St. Patty's Day in 2002, actually. But trained the SEALs on the West Coast. And then because it was successful, SEAL Team 6 on the East Coast adopted it. So he's kind of like the grandfather of the sniper program.
Wow. So like the Captain Phillips stuff, that's all him.
Captain Phillips, yep, that's a famous sniper operation for sure.
Wow. Okay, so he is he's still alive, and you actually got to talk to him for Late Night History.
I did. I had him on my podcast. He was actually, because he was like a lesser known Navy SEAL, you know, when you think of SEALs, some of them like today, people have like, you might think of Jocko Willink, he's a famous SEAL, or
right.
I don't know. I know all like the not famous SEALs, so I'm trying to think of like.
It's not a job that like really helps you to be famous. You're like a special forces operative, and then people are just be like, "Oh, hey, that's you."
Yeah, but just being able to talk to him, like he was recommended for the Medal of Honor. I think he should get reviewed, and I think he should get the Medal of Honor. I wanted to be somebody to give him a story, give him a platform to kind of talk about it, even though it's how many years later from it happened.
It's still happening, though. There's still Vietnam War, even World War I, World War II awards that are being upgraded even today. So it's not unheard of for something like that to happen. And how was he? Was he like a cool guy when you talked to him?
Yeah, he was a cool guy. He had like there's like a quiet professional persona that a lot of the older school guys that have, like Vietnam. Like he'll talk about a story when he was doing the mini subs. He was like, "Oh, I went to South America, but I can't talk about it." I'm like, "All right, RJ, I want
to." No more questions. I have no follow-up questions to that. Did not think we were in South America in the mid '60s, but okay, maybe you're on vacation.
Yeah, I don't know when he was there, but I didn't ask further. I was like, "All right, I respect your comment. I'm not going to push." But what he did do, like when he was doing the SEAL sniper program, he came back in as an officer. So he went after Vietnam, he went into the reserve unit, which was there's a reserve SEAL unit. A lot of people don't know that, but there is. Then he went to college, and after college, got his commission, became an officer. He was at like SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 5. He did like a exchange program with the Australian SASR. You think British SAS?
Their version.
Yeah.
Yeah, their version of the SAS.
And he retired as a commander in 1995. So he's an old man.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's old for Navy service, right?
Yeah.
It's old for a Navy SEAL in Vietnam. So wow. Okay. And so that's the story of R.J. Thomas. He saw a movie about World War II, extremely dangerous special operations in World War II, but they looked cool. And then he did extremely dangerous special operations in Vietnam while looking cool. And then he has this incredible battle. I mean, one of many battles, right? Like this is not his only engagement. He earned 2 Bronze Stars, and we didn't even mention the engagements because there are so many things that this guy was doing all of the time. Kind of fighting behind enemy lines. One of these, you see it in the movies and stuff, but kind of wading through rivers in the forest, just enemy contact daily, moving around these areas where the enemy can be anywhere and they're waiting for you with surprise attacks. And he's out there every single day doing this, calling in airstrikes on the radio, fighting with the SEALs. He has this incredible battle against, presumably a very large number of Viet Cong, large enough formation and heavily armed enough to bring down a helicopter and maybe almost 2. And he's able to fight off he's the only like fighting man that came out of that helicopter, saves 2 lives by pulling them out of that helicopter before it explodes, fights off possibly hundreds of Viet Cong with a 45 for 45 minutes. Escape, like gets away, but doesn't even want to evacuate, wants to keep fighting after they get him out, then goes on to create the Navy SEAL sniper program and help develop the weapons that they used. That's badass, Matt.
That is badass. And just before I go, I want to say that he brought like a different approach to the sniper program and to his philosophy. He wanted to teach SEALs how to shoot. Like that was his mission, right? He said the mentality in Vietnam was you shot full auto. You carried enough ammo so you wouldn't run out. But he's a world-class shooter. He wants to teach SEALs how to shoot better. And
it made a difference for him.
Yeah, full auto, it definitely is badass in Vietnam with the SEALs, but he wanted more precision shooting to make SEALs the best shooters in the military.
Right. And, in the job that they do and in the missions they undertake, you don't really have time. You don't have the luxury of missing. So I feel like that was a really good approach, and it worked out well for him when he needed it. His training in marksmanship really paid off for him. So I can understand why he would want to pass that along to other people, because yeah, sure, you've carried enough bullets. He's carrying 600 bullets, but his gun broke. And now what's he going to do, right?
Exactly.
So, so, so wow, Matt Fratus, thank you so much for coming on and telling me the story. I did not know about RJ Thomas when you sent me that email, and I'm very glad that I was able to learn about him. And I'm really glad that you were able to come on and tell the listeners about it. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. And if anybody's interested, you can check out my podcast, Late Night History. The episode with RJ is episode 26, I believe.
26, and it's definitely worth a listen. It's a really good episode. He's a really interesting character, a really interesting guy, and really interesting to hear him tell his stories in his own words. It's a good listen. So Matt, are you doing anything else right now, or is there somewhere people should go to look for you online?
Yeah, I was recently on Target Intelligence PsyOp, a limited podcast hosted by Sean Ryan. You can go check that out. On Late Night History on Instagram, you'll find a bunch of stories, and you see my logo and my name. And I want to just give a shout out to a Navy SEAL nonprofit that holds that I love and have been a part of for about 7 years now. That's where we're recording our episode. There's an American flag behind me right now that's signed by a 23-year Navy SEAL that from all the tours that he did. So I think that's pretty badass and a cool anecdote. So check out One More Wave. So onemorewave.com. Find us on Instagram and all the different social medias. These guys are legends too. Maybe they'll get their story told one day.
All right, Matt, thank you so much. And thanks to all of you out there for listening to this episode. We really enjoy making these, and we hope you guys enjoy listening to them. If you do, please like and subscribe, and steal all your friends' phones at a party and like and subscribe on their phones as well, because we could use the extra help. That would be nice. Okay, until next week, we will see you soon, and we'll be back again with another story. Until then, stay badass. Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions. Executive producers are Dwayne Johnson, Danny Garcia, Andrew Jacobs, Hiram Garcia, Brian Gewirtz, Frankie Chaparino, and of course, me, Ben Thompson. Writing is by me and my semi-regular but always awesome co-host, Dr. Patricia Larish. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Our mixing, music, and sound design is done by the incomparable Jude Brewer. Production support by Jean McGale-Waite. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, tell your friends, and tell your enemies. And please leave us a review. If you want to support Badass of the Week, please check out our Patreon page. We'll be back next week with another one.